The Daily Dribble.
And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammett. Here joining me is Mr. Row Hancock.
How we going, Nick?
Mate, this is our first episode, you and I holding down the fort. The first episode since the season ended.
Yes.
Denver Nuggets being crowned champions. What a hole in our lives it has left now that ball is officially over.
It's an empty feeling, isn't it?
Isn't it what?
It's basically a constant for, 3/4 of a year, and then it just disappears all of a sudden and you're feeling all alone. So I don't like it very much.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's there is a big hole, a big void left to fill, but there's still plenty of action going on.
No doubt.
The first pit stop on the road to next season is the NBA draft, which was done today, hot off the press. So we're going to recap that momentarily, as well as a couple of league-altering trades that went down during the week. So very excited to get into that in a moment as well. Before we do so, though, as I say, week in and week out, a big shout-out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover, both those networks continuing to do fantastic things for us and showcasing our work here. Despite the season being over, their efforts and endeavours are continuing on. So very appreciative of all their continued hard work and support. Right, let's get into the NBA draft. As I mentioned, was on today. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, the number one pick, the San Antonio Spurs, took Victor Wembanyama. It has been inevitable for the best part of the last 12 months.
It has.
It was, he still almost looked quite choked up today, though, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I think he was just, I know they all say that it's a surreal feeling, but like until your name's actually called out, you really never know how it's going to go. And I think he was basically saying that he just dreamt of Adam Silver calling his name out for months on end, obviously being touted as the clear number one draft pick for a long time. Yeah. And then to finally, after all this time, hear it, it's just a weight off the shoulders. And
it's been a big build-up. It has been a big build-up. There's been so much hype, and that's only going to intensify as we get close to the season tipping off. Being touted as the best prospect since LeBron James, arguably the greatest prospect in NBA history.
No pressure.
That is, I tell you what, like they are big, big shoes to fill. You know, there's been so much said about him. He's an absolute animal, an alien to say the least.
He is.
Do you think he'll make an immediate impact straight away with the Spurs team, or do you think it'll take him a little bit of time to adjust and find his feet within the league?
I think he'll make an immediate impact.
Yeah, I tend to think so too.
He's got a really mature head on his shoulders as well for a young guy, and all the weight of the world on his shoulders. But I think he'll handle it quite well. And we know that they're going to run the offense through him. You don't draft someone at the caliber of Victor Wembanyama and then expect, one of these other role players to run that team. So
especially on that team, hey, because there's no one else that's really going to be doing too much damage, you wouldn't think, on the offensive side.
No, for sure.
So he's going to be able to get whatever he wants when he wants, which is exciting for us as fans.
For sure. What odds do you reckon he's paying for Rookie of the Year next year?
I would imagine pretty short. I would imagine it would be around the $1.05 mark.
It would be quite short, wouldn't it?
Very short, and rightly so. But that being said, a lot of talent in the league. I'll rattle through the top 15, and then a couple of other notable names as well that we've alluded to over the last couple of weeks. So in the number 2 spot to the Hornets was Brandon Miller, much to the chagrin of our main man Lee.
Well, he was not happy, was he?
Who couldn't be here tonight, but he let his feelings be known during the day. The man he wanted, number 3, the Portland Trail Blazers selected Scoot Henderson. 4 was Eamon Thompson to the Houston Rockets. 5 was Asar Thompson going to the Detroit Pistons. Number 6, the Orlando Magic selected Anthony Black. Number 7, the Pacers selected Bilal Coulibaly. 8, Jarris Walker to the Wizards. Number 9 to Utah was Taylor Hendricks. 10 to the Dallas Mavericks was Cason Wallace. 11 to the Magic was Jet Howard. 12 to the Thunder was Derek Lively II. 13 to the Toronto Raptors, arguably the best name within this draft class, Grady Dick.
Yes.
14 to the New Orleans Pelicans was Jordan Hawkins, and 15 to the Atlanta Hawks was Kobe Burfkin. Other notable names that we've mentioned about was Cam Whitmore, who went number 20 to the Houston Rockets.
I'll touch on this shortly.
Chris Murray, the twin brother of Keegan Murray there, went 23rd to the Portland Trail Blazers. It's a shame, one pick before the 24th pick that the Sacramento Kings had.
Yeah.
Which was disappointing. But then another name that many people would be familiar with if you tuned into our NBL show especially, Ryan Rupert from the New Zealand Breakers. He went with the 43rd pick to the Portland Trailblazers. And number 47, a former Cairns Taipan, Mojave King, went to the Lakers. So, yeah, there you have it. There's a bit of a quick recap of some of the notable names in the top 15. I was quite surprised by the fact that Asar Thompson went number 5.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a shock, wasn't it? He was sort of touted around the 5 to 10 mark, but I think most mock drafts had him going later. But it was just a really good news story to see his brother Aman come drafted just the pick before him and then him come out the pick after. And there's no doubt that they're going to both make an impact pretty early on in their careers. And it's just going to be fun to see those brothers out there competing against each other. They both look like they're ultra competitive. And sometimes that's the difference in getting drafted that highly, having that dog in you, I guess. So
do you reckon they've got a bit of a wager because they're both on rebuilding teams, the Rockets and the Pistons, respectively? Do you think they've got a bit of a wager maybe put in place now as to, the loser, the one who has the worst record, pays up or has a punishment of some kind?
Yeah, potentially. Although Amen Thompson came out, I think it was today or yesterday, and said he feels like he's in the bad part of a divorce because Asar Thompson got to keep the PS5, so he's already got the rough end of the stick. But
I dare say with the rookie contract he's getting, mate, PS5's on tap, I would imagine.
Oh, I think so. I reckon.
Next point, question for you, Ro.
Yes
or no? Scoot Henderson went number 3. Were you a fan of the grill he was rocking?
I thought he actually pulled it off quite well.
Not many can.
I think sometimes you need that bit of swag and that personality to pull it off, and he certainly pulled it off. And he comes off as such a confidence,
doesn't he?
Guy, doesn't he? Like some people might call it cocky, but I think he's just got that really likable, infectious personality. And that translates to his on-court game as well. Like
100%.
He's got so much energy on the court, many comparisons to Russell Westbrook. And you can see how that also comes off the court as well. He's a loud personality, but I love it.
Were you surprised? A lot of the talk has been around the Blazers and what they would do with this pick. Not so much as to who they'd get, but what they would do with it in terms of trading it off for another big piece. Still certainly time to explore trade options. Did you think something would be done tonight? Like involving the Blazers, or did you think they would hold on to it and maybe get their player first, whether it was Miller or Henderson, and now they might evaluate the options at their disposal?
Yeah, well, I mean, as JJ Redick said throughout the broadcast, this pick was always going to have ramifications regardless of what happened. So the fact that they've gone with Scoot Henderson now it almost seems like Dame might be offloaded going forward. Whereas if they did trade that pick for other established players who can help Dame win now, then obviously he would have been staying. But now you do get the feeling that Dame's time in Portland, I think it's well overdue as it is, but I think it's expiring.
It's like a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it really does. So I love the pick by the Portland Trail Blazers because I think it's a guy who they can really well and truly establish their rebuild around. But that won't involve Damian Lillard, I don't believe anyway.
No, I don't think so. There's not a world in which you see in which they keep Dame and Scoot.
Don't think so.
It's just not where their trajectory, where their timeline's headed. If they want to win a title with Dame, they've got to get rid of him. They want to start putting places in for the future with Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson kind of leading this team. Dame's on the way out. So they've got a funny next month or two coming up, maybe even shorter, a couple of weeks, the way these rumours are flying around.
Yeah, I think I heard something on Twitter, the ever reliable source that Twitter is, that Damian Lillard over the next week or so will be strongly thinking about whether his future lies within Portland or not. I guess that'll be communicating with the front office as well and saying, look, I see we've drafted Scoot. Is there also plans to try and get some other really established names to help me win? If not, might be bye-bye Portland.
Bye-bye. Absolutely. Was there anything else? It's quite fresh on the mind because it happened today. So we haven't had quite enough time to probably process or digest everything that's gone down throughout the last 24 hours. Was there anything in particular that stood out, elsewhere from the draft for yourself?
Grady Dick suit. Starters.
With a name like that, you can wear whatever you want, can't you?
You can. Now, what did we make of it? That was the loudest suit. I didn't really think I'd be seeing that kind of... Yeah, it was a no from me as well.
It's a no from me. I'm a very meat and potatoes kind of... I don't have that in the kit bag. fair play to him.
Mm.
But that's you would never in a million years catch me in something like that.
No. I think look, credit to him because he didn't back down from it. You know, sometimes when people wear things that they're well and truly not capable of wearing, and their personality comes off as almost a bit like embarrassed to wear it. He certainly wasn't embarrassed. He was sort of embracing the suit. So that stood out to me. But something that I wanted to touch on that you touched on just earlier is Cam Whitmore.
Going 20 there with the Rockets.
Now that's a huge slide. A guy who many thought would be around the 5, 6, 7, 8 mark.
Yeah,
I think that's where he was projected on most mock drafts. And to fall down to pick 20, that's a significant drop. We think like a few years ago with Tyrese Halliburton, he was probably projected to go around the 4, 5 mark, and I think he ended up dropping outside the top 10, maybe.
Oh, I don't want to quite. I know he did drop significantly.
He did drop a bit, but this is even more significant. And I was thinking all throughout until he actually got drafted. What was
is he in the
reason?
Draft? Yeah, in this draft, as you get to pick 16, 17.
Am I missing something? And even like the draft experts and analysts were bewildered as to why he didn't get picked. He's got the NBA ready stereotypical body. He's apparently got a lot going for him, and you just have to wonder if it may have been like the draft interviews, the personality tests that they run
certainly play a part.
So it was just something that stood out to me, and I'm very interested now to see how he plays next season, because I would imagine he would have a very significant chip on that shoulder of his. And well done to the Rockets, though.
I was just about to say, getting Eamon Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
They would have taken that any day of the week, given that they were both coming in as, you know, pretty much touted as top 5 draft picks, both of them. Obviously, we know Amen went first, but to get him at 20, that's amazing.
Just on one of my picks, Chris Murray, 23rd, third pick, went with the Portland Trail Blazers. Just kind of rehashing what we just spoke about in the Scoot Henderson situation. I kind of like the idea of moving on from Dame. I think with what he can provide, Chris Murray, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, you know, they've got a couple of other young players that could help, you know, in this transition period, as well as what they'll get back for Dame.
Yep.
I think they're poised for a nice entry into rebuilding. Some teams it goes off a train, off a cliff. I think they've got the potential to do it quite well, and too. Probably, you know, in probably quicker fashion than some of these other teams. I think having a more experienced body in Murray there, he'll help speed up that trajectory. I think there's possibilities there for them to do this rebuild and do it well.
Yeah, I think they're now that they've taken Scoot, they're now in the perfect situation to actually commit to that rebuild, because it potentially could have been a different story if they, for example, had maybe the 6th, 7th, 8th pick, for example.
Absolutely.
They're getting someone who they're not entirely confident can turn their franchise around, and in turn, you're a bit more hesitant to offload Dame. But now you're getting someone like Scoot, who I know he went 3rd, but like if Wemby wasn't in that draft, he could have easily gone to 1, because I think just on talent alone, apart from Wemby, he's the most NBA ready guy in that draft, and the potential just through the roof.
I agree.
So I think now is the time to offload Dame, commit to the rebuild, build around Scoot, and
that's probably what they're thinking, isn't it? That they essentially got a number 1 pick.
I think so. I think so.
We're not including Wemby because that's just a completely different situation off the dial. You would argue, and many people did, that he should have gone above Brandon Miller.
Yeah.
That's probably a bit of an oversight by the Hornets. So you're looking at it in the Blazers front office. You're like, we got a number 1 pick.
Yeah, no doubt.
Perfect. Let's build around him. So very exciting things to come in Portland, I think.
Yeah, and look, I might just mention, that's no disrespect to Brandon Miller whatsoever,
of course
because
not.
he's highly talented, and I think he'll have established a really good career. But I think Scoot Henderson, just in terms of talent, apart from Wemby,
and upside, I think as well,
he's just got huge potential, and that's the kind of guy who you'd love to lead your franchise forward.
Absolutely. Well said. Was there anything else, Ro, that stuck out before we move on?
Not really, to be honest. I think we've covered most of the main points. I know you mentioned Rayon Repair before, but really happy to see that NBL talent that we saw a few times last season.
And to the Blazers as well. And
to the Blazers,
there you go. Look at that, building nicely.
Another quality pick, and we've seen him. He's got raw talent. I think he could, he might not make an impact straight away, but I think just watch his space with him.
Well said. Excellent, Ro. Let's push on, mate.
Daily Dribble.
Now, as we said, there were some monster trades that went on throughout the course of the week, league altering to say the least, across both the Eastern and Western Conference. We'll go through these and we'll just hash them out and see what the actual takeaways are.
Yeah.
We'll start first and foremost with the big penny to drop being the Washington Wizards sending Bradley Beal to Phoenix. The deal actually involved the Wizards landed 6 second-round picks and 4 first-round picks. Beal, Isaiah Todd, and Jordan Goodwin went to the Suns, whilst Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and those picks went to the Wizards. I'll touch on it in a moment. The Wizards have since rerouted Chris Paul with him ending up. I was about to say, where's he ending up? It seems like an absolute blur, but he's ending up in San Francisco with the Warriors there. We'll touch on that momentarily. But this trade here, the big piece, Beal to the Suns, right? If they had to keep Ayton, they're paying the top 4 players, Beal, KD, Booker, and Ayton, a combined $163 million already in the luxury tax, whilst having to fill out the rest of their roster. And they don't have any control of their own draft picks till 2031. This is huge. They have thrown the kitchen sink to win a title with this big 4.
They really have, and it might be an unpopular opinion because I guess when you look at this squad on paper, particularly the starting 5, you think to yourself, geez, this squad could achieve anything. You got 3 guys who could average 30 on their day, and most of them have. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of Brooklyn 2.0, just in terms of you've got this super team, you've got this high-end talent, but we know that sometimes just putting 3 superstars together doesn't always equate to championships or even, Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals in this case. So there's a lot to play out for mine. I wouldn't be jumping on them too early. No. I just want to wait to see how these 3 go together. And the fact of the matter is that their depth now is just like, it was already questionable before, and now it's even worse. And if I were the Phoenix Suns, I don't know about you, Nick, but I'd potentially consider trading DeAndre Ayton for a few pieces that could come off the bench and provide them with that.
Could you start Landale Biombo as your centre stocks?
I think.
Would they be good enough with the other talent they've got around them?
I think if the trade-off was trading Ayton for more depth, I think I would do that and have maybe Jock Landale at the starting 5.
He doesn't need the ball. He doesn't need to score. He's going to play hard.
Yeah.
That's probably what they need. He's going to be a little bit undersized, but Ayton is as well. Like, whoever it is in the Western Conference, it's running through Jokic at the minute. Anyone's going to get eaten on the boards by him.
For sure.
So I think that's probably the way to go, and that's a lot of the talk surrounding Ayton at the minute. The only thing I worry about is, we know KD can handle the rock and Booker. Like, who's diming up these blokes?
Who's the facilitator?
Like they're all natural born killers. They want buckets, they want points, get to their spot, but who's going to get them the ball?
That's such a good question. And it's one that I've been thinking of as well, because they've lost one of the best facilitators of all time in Chris Paul, even though he was getting on in age. And now they're left with 3 sort of like pure scorers almost. And who's going to be the facilitator? I really don't know at the moment, because I don't think it will be KD. And as for Bill and Devin Booker, they haven't made their name around being facilitators throughout the course of their career so far. And I just don't know how that's going to work, but they're going to have to implement that side of things into their game. Sort of like, I guess if we're going back to the Brooklyn comparison, sort of like James Harden had to do. Like, he probably wasn't known as the facilitator.
One of them had to adapt.
But he just had to do it. And I think one of these guys are going to have to learn pretty quickly.
Bloody oath they are. On the Wizards side, getting Chris Paul, since rerouted, 6 second-round draft picks and 4 first-round pick swaps. It's a good haul in their quest to rebuild. Like, they've made the decision. Kuzma declining his option. We'll touch on a moment, getting rid of Porzingis, Beal. Like, they've completely just nuked this whole thing.
They have.
And we often say here it's an absolute, it's almost daily dribble folklore. We hate mediocrity.
We do.
We hate those teams.
We're known for it.
We hate those teams that sit in the middle, and the Wizards have made the conscious choice to not be that anymore, because they've since the John Wall, Bradley Beal iteration, moving on from Wall into this next phase of things, they've never been anything more than first round fodder or a playing team. So I think it's probably a decision, we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. Is Bill ever going to get moved? Is he going to get moved? Probably last week we spoke about it.
Yep.
they've finally made the choice to go that direction. And I think they've done the right thing.
I feel like this is almost the off-season where we're actually seeing this change that we've hoped for so many years. We talk about Bradley Beal. Obviously, he's already been traded to the Phoenix Suns, but then obviously Damian Lillard as well. Another guy who we think, like, we do value loyalty to some extent, but sometimes when you just know when it's not working.
100%.
And once they head off, it's almost like a sigh of relief. And I think the Washington Wizards, to fully commit to the rebuild, sort of like Oklahoma City did before they drafted some of their guys that they've got at the moment. It's endearing because it's like, okay, we know that you want to start from scratch and turn things around, and you're not just going to sit in that middle area for God knows how long.
Exactly. Well, another team that pulled, actually, speaking of the Wizards, should I say, they had a big trade that went down. Was this yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
It's a bit of a blur, but yeah, I think so.
Initially had a deal involving a 3-team trade involving the Wizards, Celtics, and Clippers. It looked pretty much official, done deal. You might have seen on our socials. Check them out if you're not already. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. We put something up about the initial trade. Only an hour or two later, that got pulled. The official trade that went through was a 3-team involving the Celtics, Wizards, and Grizzlies, in which the Celtics receive Kristaps Porzingis. The Wizards receive Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and the number 35 pick in today's draft. And the Grizzlies receive Marcus Smart. Now, Ro, you're a resident Boston fan. How do you feel about getting KP here? And I'll ask you this as well on that. Do you feel better about this trade or the one that looked like it was going through, getting rid of Brogdon?
I think so from a Celtics fan perspective, I would have preferred the first trade over this second trade, because I don't think many people realize, unless you're a Boston Celtics fan like I am, that Marcus Smart, even though he wasn't our best player, he was our heart and soul of that squad. It's like I know this is how we could relate, Nick, from a Tasmanian Jack Jumpers perspective. 100%. If we pulled out someone like Jack McVeigh, he's not our best player, even though he's one of our best, but he's just the heart and soul, and it makes a huge impact. So don't get me wrong. I love the fact that we've tried to make a move to considerably improve our chances of winning the championship next year. And if Kristaps Porzingis has a year like he had last season, career best season, then I think we're going to be very difficult to beat, particularly in the East. But I just also really hate the fact that we got rid of Marcus Smart. I hope it doesn't affect team chemistry, because sometimes one guy is all it takes for the whole thing to come crumbling down. And it's a bit of a wait and see for mine. I like the idea behind it, like the want to get better and the want to take that next step. But you've ripped the heart and soul out, and it's sort of a difficult pill to swallow.
Wicked move for the Grizzlies. They've got now the two reigning back-to-back defensive player of the years. You know, they've lost Tyus Jones. Okay, he was a bit of a spark plug, showed flashes throughout the season, but you're getting Marcus Smart. That is a huge, huge upgrade. He'll kind of fill the void left by Tyus Jones, Dylan Brooks. A real solid addition, I think, to that team. And they're going to need someone who's a locker room leader. Jar's out for the first 25 games. He's going to feel a big part of their squad throughout that period. For the Wizards side of things, they get another draft pick. Tyus Jones will, these players, Gallinari, Mike Muscala, it's not really about winning for them at the minute. So
really not.
Doesn't really matter. Got rid of Porzingis and his contract. Again, signifying that they've really delved into this rebuild. But the Celtics, I agree, Ro. I think it's going to be a real wait and see, and that's kind of not a cop-out answer, but it'll be interesting to see how he can coexist in a lineup with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. It's not easy to fit in, and he's coming off arguably one of the better years of his career. Showed some real consistency, really competent at knocking down the three ball, and really kind of elevated himself to possibly the number one guy there in Washington. Whereas now he's going to slide to number 3.
How will he accept that?
How will he accept that? Indeed. But it's funny. I think it's increased your upside, but it's also increased your floor as well. Like, it could go horribly wrong.
I agree.
It's an exciting one. It's going to be exciting to play with on 2K, the Celtics, I reckon now.
Fairly handy squad, isn't it?
Bloody oath it is. losing Gallinari, we didn't see him all season long. Muscala didn't really contribute too much. Keeping Brogdon, I think, is beneficial.
It is handy. It is handy. It was sort of, as we saw with the 2 trade requests, it was either Brogdon or Marcus Smart. So I guess keeping 6 man of the year.
It's pick your poison, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it really is.
Like, either way, you're losing a big integral piece of what you guys did this season, and for Marcus Smart longer. But sometimes you've got to pull the trigger, don't you?
Got to give up something to get something, unfortunately.
Well, to culminate these big 3 trades, there was another massive one today that involved the Wizards and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are receiving Chris Paul after being rerouted from the Phoenix Suns, went to Washington, now ending up in Golden State. The Wizards receive Jordan Poole, the 2030 first-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick, just adding to their war chest. Done a really good job this little last week or so of accumulating assets. And getting Jordan Poole as well, like a guy that they can kind of build around. We'll get to see him almost run this franchise now, be the kind of the number one guy.
It's so intriguing, this one for mine, because we've seen Jordan Poole. He's a high volume scorer on his day. When he's hot, he's very hot, and when he's cold, he's ice cold. But leading a franchise, he hasn't had to do that before. Is he going to be a guy who we can lock in for 25 a night going forward?
I think so, and I think partly it'll be because there'll be so little expectations and pressure, and partly due to the fact that there's not many other guys probably that are going to score in this starting 5. So I think you can probably lock him into that. He's going to. It's probably not going to be a real efficient 25, but he'll get 25 come hell or high water, I reckon. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with him. But on the Warriors side, they have just cemented their efforts again of extending this dynasty run, really going all in on another chip, maximizing what they've got with Steph, Clay. Draymond turned down his option during the week, so time will tell how that plays out. But with Wiggins as well, adding Chris Paul into the fold, is this the big move that gets him back to the promised land?
Is it? Yeah, it's something I've been weighing up. He's 38 years of age,
That's
right?
an old core now.
It's not prime CP3 we're talking about.
Yep.
If it was, then it could be a different story. He's still got a bit to give CP3, and particularly from a facilitating point of view. My big question mark with this trade and CP3 going to the Warriors is, does he fit in with that current Warriors squad? The jury's out for mine, because as I was saying today on the broadcast when they were discussing it, and I 100% agree, is that the Golden State Warriors play style is very erratic. It's very quick. Like, it's almost like hot potato. As soon as you get it, you pass it around. Whereas CP3,
methodical, isn't he?
Much more methodical, much more calculated, slow.
Yeah.
So I'm
who's like, it's going to have to be him that has to give and adjust to their playing style. Like, they're not going to, build their playing style around a 38-year-old who's never won a championship.
God no. Does he go to the bench?
Well, there's another point, and an intriguing point within that too. They've lost Jordan Poole, who was really, the go-getter on that second lineup. Came into the starting lineup in points there and finishing games. But who is going to drive that second unit? We've seen Kuminga. He'll be there. He'll develop. There's a couple Moody. There's young guys there, but are they ready to lead a second unit? Don't know.
I would like to see CP3 come off the bench, because I feel like his playing style just contradicts the Warriors' playing style far too much for it to work. I know they've got a bit of time between now and the start of the season to work on this kind of thing and for him to get acclimatized, but sometimes it's difficult, particularly in that very end of the twilight in your career, to change and accommodate a completely different playing style. So I think 100%. If anything, I'd like to see him come off the bench and, be a good leader, because they do have some really quality young guys on that team who could use the leadership in that second unit as well. So, and they've got more than enough firepower in that starting 5 as it is. They wouldn't include him for offensive firepower. They'd probably include him for, facilitation and a bit more experience and leadership in the big games.
I think it'll be telling as to whether or not they can still, he's turned down his option, keep Draymond Green. If he disappears, I reckon there's a lot higher chance that Paul starts.
Yep.
Whereas if they keep him, I think a bench role would be more suitable. Big opportunity though. Like, that's some high caliber talent they've got. He's had a bit of a track record of injuries over the last couple of seasons, Paul. If they can keep him fit and healthy, limit, the role that he has to carry throughout the regular season. Scary proposition. Scary proposition coming into the finals. So,
but it's also a question for mine. Do you think this trade helps or hinders them in comparison to where they are currently at? Because I see two sides of things. Because you've got Jordan Poole, who's got age on his side, and he's probably still got hasn't hit his prime yet.
Exactly.
So, whereas you got CP3, you're almost going all in right now. Exactly. If it doesn't pay off, it kind of looks like a little bit of a silly trade. But
he's a hired hitman, isn't he?
Yes.
I'm absolutely on board. I don't know if it weighing it up, if it dramatically improves them.
I don't think it dramatically does.
Gives them a little more stability and a little more. You feel like at this point in his career what you're going to get a little bit more with Chris Paul as opposed to the erratic and the highs and lows of Jordan Poole.
Yep.
But yeah, granted, I don't know how much it actually does improve them.
No, I'm with you. Time will tell.
Time will tell indeed, my friend. A couple of other just quick points that have occurred throughout the week. Ja Morant suspended for 25 games to start the 2023-2024 season. The suspension will come with conditions for his return. I haven't seen too many of what they've been alluded to yet, but he won't be able to participate or be involved with any team activities up until the end of the suspension. For me, he gave another apology during the week, and I'm, just with where the league's at, it almost feels like last chance saloon now, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does. And it almost did after the first time because it's just silly behavior. And for him to do it a second time, he's got the suspension that was warranted. Hopefully he's learnt his lesson. And who knows how he'll respond from this. He could come back and it could be like the turning point in his career. Like he might be a different type of player, like a more doesn't take it for granted as much, and that might reflect in his playing. So who knows? There's still a lot of unknowns about his return when he does return.
Yeah.
Where does he fall in our fantasy ranks, Nick?
Is he someone who still goes higher even though he's missing the first 25 games? Or do you try and get him later rounds as a steal when he comes in knowing he's going to make an immediate impact?
Well,
tough.
If you have it like a 12-man league like we normally do, he's probably going in maybe late first, early second.
You reckon
round.
Late first still?
Potentially. Oh, no. Sorry. I should have clarified. If he wasn't suspended, he would have been going.
Gotcha. Yep.
But because he's now suspended, maybe a few.
4 or 5?
I don't know. You got to be calculated with when
you got to play the long game as well in fantasy.
You do.
I don't know. Actually, that is an intriguing point. That's something I'm going to have to really think on. And all you guys should be thinking out there as well. If you want to join our fantasy league for next season, I think we're going to make it a bit of a money league, aren't we?
Yes.
So be sure to let us know if you're a fantasy player out there. We would love to hear. We'd love to get you involved. The spots will fill up fast, so please reach out to us, and we'll make sure to make a note and get it happening.
Yep, sounds good.
Another couple of real quick points here. After a 17-year NBA career, Lou Williams officially announced his retirement during the week. Sweet Lou was a 3-time Sixth Man of the Year, as well as being the NBA's all-time leading bench scorer. Across 1,123 games, he averaged 14 points, 2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, whilst developing into one of the league's most prolific three-point shooters in the latter stages of his career in particular. Hell of a career.
Oh, hell of a career.
Hell of a career.
There was a stage there, like for a long period, where you sort of almost just penciled him in for Sixth Man of the Year every single season. Even if he didn't win it, he would be the favourite most seasons, and rightly so, because he provided such electricity and such a heartbeat off the bench every single season, particularly in his prime. And it's sad to see him go, like someone who had that much of an impact off the bench, but well-deserved retirement.
I loved his relationship he had, a couple of seasons ago with Montrezl Harrell.
Yep.
That iteration of the Clippers, and that spark plug, that 1-2 punch off the bench was just awesome to watch. So, wicked career there for Lou Williams. Sweet Lou. Last point here, Michael Jordan. During the week, he has agreed to sell his majority stake in the Hornets for an approximate $3 billion valuation, according to league sources. This ends his 13-year tenure as a majority owner. Purchased the stake in 2010 for $275 million, cashing out 13 years later at $3 billion.
That's unfair.
That is a plus 10x in return on investment.
He's not short of coin as it is.
That's outrageous, isn't it?
Berserk.
That's ridiculous. Hell of an investment.
Yep.
had since come out. He'll still be around the franchise, though, in some capacity. I know he played a big part as to who they chose between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. So he's certainly going to have his fingerprints all over the Hornets still, but it'll be interesting to see what direction the new owners take it. But I tell you what, he is a savvy man, isn't he?
Oh, he knows what he's
savvy
doing.
Man.
It just one of, if not the best player of all time, and off the court as well. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's a businessman, isn't he?
First and foremost.
Yes.
First and foremost. So, guys, there wraps up another massive week. As we said, there were a couple of other minor trades throughout the week. We haven't had quite enough time to process and digest it all as of yet. We will certainly do so. No doubt there will be plenty going on over the next couple of weeks as all the news continues to break. We can't wait. It is imperative, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest trades, that you follow our socials, guys. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, to get the latest news from across the NBA and the NBL, as well as subscribing wherever you listen to the show so as to never miss another episode. Bro, what a week. It is, even though the season is over, it is unrelenting.
It almost just picked up a notch as soon as the season ended, as the NBA season generally does.
It does indeed. It is an absolute blur and a haze at the moment, as it will continue to be for the next couple of weeks and leading into Summer League, which isn't that far away either.
It's not, just around the corner.
That is scary to say. But from myself, from Lee, who couldn't be here tonight, and from Row, we thank you for tuning in with us each and every single week. Continue to do so, and we'll continue to bring the magic. Till next week, guys. Take care.